she rented the building off of Jay Barnes upstairs, and we've been like following each other around. So that was my escape on Saturday night when I would close. My wife and I would try to get out of there no later than 12 and go to Maureen's and try to get home by 3. It was.
Yeah, we enjoyed it.
Yeah, I like Maureen. Yeah, she's good thing. Good thing. So this is a good board. This is a big board, huh? Is it?
Well, it's 7 plus 2.
7 plus 2
Is
alternates.
everyone here for this? I mean, I saw-
B is always a little questionable.
I'm not sure whether B's going to be here, although I spoke with her yesterday, so I think she will be here. And Steve will be here. Lorraine will not.
Lorraine won't be here.
Yeah, she said something's going on tonight. She has it's every January because of reorganization, she has 2 meetings the same night.
Yeah, I saw her car was here. She didn't go to school with it either for some reason.
Yeah.
She is our council liaison,
Yeah, okay.
and presumably
I'm on the,
she probably will remain as our council liaison, even
Beach
though.
Development, she's our council liaison on that as well. Plus she's chair.
Yeah, she's got a few things going on. What do you think?
That girl's busier than one on paper. When she decides to do a project, she gets involved in it.
And shit gets done.
I'll tell you what, I'd rather have her than 2 mechanics.
Look, I'm with you.
Because even if she can't do it right, she's gonna do it, and she'll learn how to do it.
Oh, yeah, no, she'll figure it out.
That's what I could use, a good mechanic right now.
Hey, Jake, I was just telling old war stories about you.
He said all those years and you never arrested him once.
No, I'll tell you what, I can tell you some things, but he should have us arrested.
He was just a summer cop, he wasn't the chief then.
No, I mean when he became chief and he had full powers.
Well, Yogi ran a nightclub. We were making $2.50 an hour as summer cops. We go in the back, he handed us a gin and tonic and we...
Yeah, he always
Beats
did
me
a
at the A&P.
Yeah.
I remember my starting wage was $1.25, and I had to give 15 cents of it to the union.
Oh, now that's ridiculous.
The great AM Pacific Tea Company.
I remember that, yeah. My first job was at the restaurant Zabers over in...
Ed Zabers,
Yeah, Coast to the coast.
to Zaberize it.
Yeah, well, my mom and dad liked the Zaberize.
Zaberized.
1.5, I think they were, right?
Yeah, well, it was later known as the Country Club Pour.
Yeah. My mother's sister, her husband's brother was a bartender for Ed Zaber for years. And it was 2 brothers, Charlie and Ed. Mm-hmm. Charlie approached my uncle's brother and said, I want to open a place up near the Atlantic City racetrack. I'm looking for
The old Atlantic City racetrack.
And he didn't do it, and it became a big success.
Really?
He wouldn't even ride past it. It was much, it was a year-round.
Yeah, no. That was big business in those days.
Oh, yeah.
In the days when there were no other ways to gamble.
Lobster Thermidor, can't go wrong.
What, was there side gambling going on?
Oh, outside the Atlantic City racetrack? Yeah, all the time. Good evening.
Chris, how are you?
So this is your new seating chart?
It is my
I just said where I have my name.
So Judy gave me that assignment, so I moved people around. I wanted to make sure there was a woman.
Well, no, so far no fist fights have broken out.
Well,
I
it's
was
a
worried
good
about
thing.
moving Jake.
It's good.
I feel good about it. So.
Good.
I just wanted,
I've been doing this all
I
my
thought it was
life.
important to have a woman.
Hey, listen, if it doesn't work out, you can move us around again.
You're around again. It's like,
This month, you'll be taking different seats.
well, part of the reason also is that Judy, it's a challenge for you and Janice to sit there because she
it
can't
might
really
take a couple months to
see
get
you
this.
and communicate with you. And even though there are microphones, she can't hear you as well.
I'm loud enough, usually.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Usually.
How are you?
So maybe it was more Janice. But she said the 3 people that she doesn't even get much from are those 3, so we decided.
Well, you won't have any trouble hearing Yogi.
No. Yogi's great.
So we have some oaths to do. We have, your chair is not here yet.
Nope, he'll be here.
It's a long walk from Hughes Street.
So, I have a question. I signed the Sign this.
Judy has it as an agenda. Usually is somewhere around here. I just
Okay. Pay bills?
What'd you do, screw something up?
And I'll put it right after your appointment.
Isn't it at the end?
Say it again?
Isn't it at the end?
No,
The additional business doesn't include paying bills?
not that I know of.
Well, maybe she just forgot it.
I think so.
Say la vie.
We'll put it up front.
Excuse me, John. Lorraine is not coming?
She is not.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Judy.
Yes.
Right after we do the appointment of,
So Chris, is the new year bringing you new legal challenges? And the first, like a snow emergency council meeting?
It's always bringing new surprises and difficulties, but it's part of the job.
I'm surprised they didn't make you shovel snow to get.
Already had to show
God, that was awful, wasn't it?
how you make
I
it.
sat there fine. I'm the quiet guy in the East End. I sat there on Monday. I said, okay, keep snowing, keep snowing. 3 o'clock, I was out with the shovel. 3 hours into the dark, I shoveled. I had 8-10 inches easy, maybe more in the driveway. And I thought, wow, am I freaking tired? Went in, had a drink, had a meal. Jeannie's up in Princeton, just gallivanting. So the next day I wake up, 30% of what I shoveled is blown back on the driveway again. I had to go out and do it 2 days in a row. By the end of the week, I was so inspired. I have a 7.5 power Ariens snow thrower that I had over in New Rochelle. I moved it to Princeton 30 years ago. I haven't used it since. It's still in the garage in Princeton. So,
John, do you know if Steve is coming?
Steve is coming, yes.
But I just thought it was so funny.
so here are all our little meetings.
So Judy had to move it down.
Turn it off. Yeah. I've made a few mistakes with that before. You know, Becker, I feel like I'm in the penalty box.
You are. You have to earn your way back onto the ice.
But don't feel bad about it. When the TV cameras come on, they only get the side of your head. so Yogi, look to your right a lot, right? Look to your right a lot.
So Yogi, I figured your right side was better. So instead of putting you over there, I put you there.
Yeah, Jake and I we've had to do things.
Yeah.
We can't sit there.
Yeah.
I've seen him in a while, but
All right. Well, you guys
there was a reason for that.
create a ruckus. I'll bring you one next time. How's
Yeah.
that?
Well, we're informal and loose, but not that loose.
It's me. You too.
I called you, because I didn't know the appropriate attire. So I'll ask the best dresser. And you weren't there, so I asked the worst dresser. John.
Me.
He said clothes are mandatory.
Yeah, yes.
So was my assessment accurate, Yogi? Take a look. Except for our illustrious solicitor.
What you can always tell the solicitor in this group by who wears the tie. Right? I could swear I put one by your place. But we can look on together.
When you get rolling, there's nothing I can do to quiet you down.
You probably can. You're sitting there. You probably can.
I'm going to turn this off so that doesn't get rolling.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Or you could do what Janice, what Paul said to Janice. So I'm talking, and he texted her. He said, "Will you shut your mouth? Will you shut your mouth?"
Shut your mouth.
From somewhere off in the outer stratosphere. She looks at me, she said, I didn't have time to tell you, but Paul said, shut you up.
Well, this looks like a fairly short meeting tonight.
Well,
Maybe we're
You
entering-
know us, we can take any short meeting and turn it into a 50% overage.
Well, maybe that will happen a little bit less.
I still can't figure out what these people are doing with the railroads.
Yeah.
It's like every time we get the same package, and we get a reduced number of things in it, but they're not telling us what they're doing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
I'm watching it, John.
is that because we'll just say no?
Good to see you.
Good to see you, brother. Nice sweater. Look at you guys. I didn't get the memo.
Well, do you have a nice blue sweater?
I know I don't. Everything I own is black.
You really
We have to go with the blue eyes.
If you had tats, you'd be a real great goth. I'll tell you.
No, but there's a reason. Which I have a substantial reason. It occurred in 1993.
For black?
Yeah. It's an old myth. I read this wonderful book called Iron John, written by Robert Bly, who's a poet. It's all about coming to grips with your shadow and becoming what is a male in our culture, which is really a challenge, given that we do live in a patriarchy. It's pretty
Well, in my family, we
perverse.
did.
Yeah. So it's a long story.
Yeah.
It's a myth about this young boy. And partially, about 2/3 of the way through the myth, he starts working for the king, becomes a warrior. In the first battle, he goes out on a white horse. Second battle, he goes out on a red horse. Third battle, he goes out on a black horse. So he progressed.
Well, I mean, it also simplifies your wardrobe enormously.
You never have to, right? So there's always one touch of color.
Although in a color movie, you're probably pretty drab.
Although, those old noir films, you watch these noir films.
Yeah, we do.
There's no reason for color. They're just so
No,
beautiful.
we have pretty much been addicted to Noir Alley on TCM.
Great.
Right? What I don't get, I will record. And
Oh, the one that was on this week was great. It
was Dane Clark stuff?
it was the one,
Dane Clark
Darkness
is
Till Dawn. It was the sailor. It's like one of the top two most famous noirs early. He shows up and the woman he was going to return the money to is dead.
I probably have it recorded, but we do watch it pretty closely.
You a noir film guy?
Yeah, a little, not as much as what you are sounding like.
Well, those guys figured out how to make depth and texture and beauty with just black and white. And it's like,
Yeah.
And so that's been your aspiration since that time. Right?
yeah, I want to be a noir film. So.
Well, there's plenty of opportunity for noir here. You know that.
Kate May could use a little noir.
You're getting close to calling the meeting.
We
order.
are, yeah. I got my hammer all ready here.
Get that hammer out.
And pretty soon I'm going to pass it right down the road.
Yeah. So,
Unless the voting goes wrong.
Yeah.
I want to get a silver hammer because I want to be Maxwell.
You'll take the wooden one and like it.
Yeah. We have a full house here tonight, don't we?
We do. Well, you know, it's an important meeting, first one of the year. Right?
Everybody wants to get elected.
Well, I didn't come for that reason, but.
All right.
Oh, you're very close, almost on the dot.
Good evening, everybody. This is the Cape May City Historic Preservation Commission. We are meeting on January 13th, starting our meeting right at 6 p.m. In compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act of 1975, adequate notice of this meeting has been provided. If any member has reason to believe that this meeting is being held in violation of that act, they should state so at this time. Hearing none, I'll ask everybody to join us for the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Judy, before you do the roll call, to everybody, I would like to introduce you to our newest member. You might know him as Yogi, but his real name is William Kurtz. And before we can do anything, we have to give him the oath of office.
Which we're doing right now,
Okay.
for the record.
Okay.
Swearing these guys in. That's you, son. Yeah, I'll sign it.
Actually, Tom, we need to do the roll call first. That's part of reorganization.
Okay, well,
We can do it twice if you like.
yeah. I'll let them finish up here, and then we'll do the roll call. Okay, Judy, I think we're ready for the roll call.
Mr. Carroll,
Here.
Mr. Becker,
Here.
Here.
Mr. Testa,
Here.
Ms. Pisagno,
Here.
Ms. Wilson Stritter,
Here.
Mr. Hammer,
Here.
Mr. Johnson,
Here.
Mr. Kurtz.
Here.
Thank you.
What an attendance. So I don't have to do that again now, do I? Okay. We are also missing, and I'm very sorry about it, our former chair, Warren Copeland, after many years on the board, decided he wanted to get into other things. So the first thing we need to do, which we would be doing in January anyway, is have new elections for our officers and also solicitor, and also pick people for news media for our announcements. So I would like to start with a nomination for the chairman of the board. And since I have the microphone on, I would like to nominate John Becker to be our chairman for this year.
And
Is
calling
there-
for a second, I'll second
Yes.
the nomination.
And Jim Testa has seconded it. Is there any other nominations for chairman of the board? Hearing none, can I call for a unanimous vote for Jim Blocker as our new chairperson? John Blocker.
Maybe it's the two of us.
Yeah.
Mr. Carroll.
Yes, here, yes.
Ms. Pisagno. Yes. Ms. Wilson Stridick.
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson.
Yes.
Mr. Hammerin. Yes. Mr. Testa.
Yes.
John, you can either vote or not.
Abstain, please.
Mr. Johnson.
Yes.
Thank you.
Duly elected, I am now having the pleasure of turning the meeting over to John.
Thank you.
Who will handle the elections of the vice chairman.
Okay. So I'd like to nominate as vice chair Jim Testa. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second.
Whoa, there were 3 seconds. Who got in there first?
I think I have the votes.
Yeah.
I think
Let's give, I think I heard B first.
you did? Okay.
So is there any discussion? Hearing none. Judy, can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Carroll.
Yes.
Ms. Pisagno. Yes. Ms. Wilson Stridick.
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson.
Yes.
Mr. Hammerin. Mr. Testa.
In keeping with our chair's moral stance, I abstain.
Mr. Becker.
Yes.
Mr. Johnson.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Next order of business is to appoint our legal advisor and solicitor for 2025 for the commission. And I would like to make a motion to nominate Chris Gillenschwartz.
I'll second.
We have a second. Any discussion?
I'd like to make a comment.
Please.
We've had Chris now working with us for the past year, and I wanted to say that from a legal perspective, because I think I have some perspective about that, I think we've been really, really well represented. He's been easy to work with, and I think the important part is he's found for us, sometimes during meetings, some very interesting and creative solutions. So I would highly recommend that we continue and vote in favor of Chris for our solicitor.
Thank you, Jim.
Mr. Carroll.
Yes.
Ms. Pisagno.
Yes.
Ms. Wilson Stridick.
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson.
Yes.
Mr. Hammerin. Mr. Testa.
Yes.
Mr. Becker.
Yes.
Thank you.
Next order of business is to designate our official newspaper. And in keeping with aligning with all of the other departments here in Cape May, I would like to make a motion that we have our official newspaper shifted to the Cape May County Herald. to align with how everybody else in K-May at the city level is doing it. So,
I will second that motion.
any discussion, folks? Hearing none? Judy?
Yes.
Ms. Bisagno.
Yes.
Ms. Wilson Stridick.
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson.
Yes.
Mr. Hammerin.
Yes.
Mr. Testa.
Yes.
Mr. Becker.
Yes.
Thank you.
Next order of business is to officially designate meeting dates and times for 2025. And those are in your packets, everybody. And in short, it's the third Monday of each month, with the exception of February and November due to President's Day and Thanksgiving week, and also the first meeting in 2026 for reorganization. So with that in mind, I would like to make a motion that we approve the meeting dates and times for 2025 as were published in your packet. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Thanks, Janice. Any discussion? Hearing none, Judy?
Mr. Carroll.
Yes.
Ms. Bisagno.
Yes.
Ms. Wilson Stridick.
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson.
Yes.
Mr. Hammerin. Mr. Testa.
Yes.
Mr. Becker.
Yes.
Thank you.
Next order of business is, we have, as you guys all know, been having Tuesday morning review meetings. And there are three of us who have been conducting those meetings. Now that Warren's not here, I would like to appoint and make a motion to appoint on that review committee myself as chair, Kevin, who has been doing it for this entire past year, and alternating every other week between Yogi and Steve as our alternates, as a way to continue to learn and become more deeply involved with what we're trying to do on Tuesday mornings. Now, with that said, I'd also like to shift those meetings to 9 o'clock on Tuesday mornings. And the reason for that is to adjust more with folks' schedules. Seems like that's a more appropriate time. And one last thing is, I'd also like to propose that instead of taking the Tuesday off after our meetings, so traditionally we have not met on the Tuesday after our Monday meetings, given the workload that we have, and I would say the more prominence of folks coming to speak with us, which I think is a really good thing, I'd like to propose that we have it every Tuesday and not take the Tuesday off. So, for example, we would meet tomorrow morning and every month accordingly. So with that, I make the motion that the review committee consists of myself, Kevin, and every other week, Yogi and Steve, as schedules allow. Do I hear a second?
Second the motion.
Any discussion?
I think I'd like to say something about it.
Please.
This is a part of a really good pattern, and that's taking alternates who generally have shorter service on the commission and giving them a chance to do the nuts and bolts work that are involved in the applications and review. Those applications come in at sometimes a furious rate, and a great way to learn how they're handled is to do them in small committees. And that's been a good education for everybody who's served in that review function. So this is a good step toward furthering education of our process.
I'm fine with it, yeah.
With the length of the time of some of our evening meetings, they might not even need to go home.
Oh,
I'll bring snacks.
That's an interesting point.
Any other discussion, folks? Judy?
Mr. Carroll.
Yes.
Ms. Bisagno.
Yes.
Ms. Wilson Stridick.
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson. Mr. Hammerin. Mr. Testa.
Yes.
Mr. Becker.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. In your packets to prepare for this meeting from Judy, thank you, Judy. You were all given, I believe, a copy of the meeting minutes from our last meeting on January 13th. Did everybody get a copy of those? I'd like to entertain a motion for approving those minutes.
I move.
I second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. Judy?
Mr. Carroll.
Yes.
Ms. Bisagno.
Yes.
Ms. Wilson Stridick.
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson.
Yes.
Mr. Hammerin.
Yes.
Mr. Testa.
Yes.
Mr. Becker.
Yes.
Thank you.
On to, that really concludes then our reorganization, our minutes and resolutions. Well, what last thing is, we did have one resolution that was also in your packet, and that's the resolution authorizing the appointment of Christopher Gillen Schwartz Esquire as Solicitor for the Historic Preservation Commission for the period of January 1st through December 31st of 2025. To entertain a motion to approve that resolution?
So move.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none? Let's vote.
Okay. Mr. Carroll.
Yes.
Ms. Bisagno.
Yes.
Ms. Wilson Stridick.
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson.
Yes.
Mr. Hammerin. Mr. Testa.
Yes.
Mr. Becker.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. I look forward to working with everybody again this year.
Excellent. Applications approved and denied in review. There's a list of them that Judy has put on your agenda, and I would like to entertain a motion to approve those applications approved and denied in review.
So moved.
Second.
Having been moved and seconded, any discussion?
Mr. Carroll.
Yes.
Ms. Bisagno.
Yes.
Ms. Wilson Stridick.
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson. Mr. Hammerin. Mr. Testa.
Yes.
Mr. Becker.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, now on to projects. So first on our agenda this evening, under old business, is the Raymond Project at 226 Grant Street. Catherine, I know you were here. It looks like your owner is here as well. I'd like to just give a little background to this submission, if I could, please. So you may recall that a year ago, we authorized demolition of the house at 226 Grant Street, with one exception, and that was there was a portion of that house at the back that was to have remained and not been demolished, which was going to be incorporated into the design of the new house that was being proposed. In the intervening period, zoning issues led the owner to also desire knocking down that last portion of the house, which I believe, Catherine, was from 1954?
Say that again. The last portion of the house?
Yeah, oh, no, it was later than that. It was
It was built in about 2007.
2000, okay, yes. So in other words, what we're hearing now, oh, and after that, we also then, in January of last year, a year ago, we approved the conceptual review, or we approved conceptually the design of the new house. So if I'm not mistaken, Catherine, you're here and your owner to do two things. One is to get an amendment to the demolition to allow for, get approval for demolishing everything. And second is, I believe it's final approval of the revised design that incorporates all new house. Is that correct?
Yes.
So could you both please just state your name and, for the record, please, and what your role is?
Anthony Caparizzo. I'm actually son-in-law of the owner, so not property owner.
Hi, Anthony.
Catherine Lorenz, architect.
So Catherine, was that an accurate description of status to date?
Yes, that was actually going to be my first sentence.
Thought I'd save you the time.
Yes, because I want to, I know you guys see a lot of different projects, and I'm going to sort of give an overview. There are two parts to this old business, and the first part, I've added some additional items to your packet. And the first part is an addendum to the approval of the demolition. This house, a year ago, we got approval to demolish 2/3 of this house, and the rear portion of this house was going to be elevated. Then, after we got approval for that, we also received conceptual approval to rebuild the front portion of the house and to move forward to the zoning. We were going to need to have zoning approval. We were denied zoning approval for what we wanted to do. Back to the drawing board I go. So this business that we're going to talk about is sort of two parts. The first part I call the addendum to the demolition. This house, this is the first little packet. This house, if we talk about it, was built in 3 sections. The first 2 sections were approved to be demolished, which is a copy of the resolution also attached to your packet. I show here in a diagram here is that we are proposing now to add demolition to the 3rd rear portion of the house, which is a 1-story building with a deck on top. The rear portion meets all of the criteria of the points that were approved in the original demolition. The addition was built in 2007. It is below flood. It is a non-contributing, as is the rest of the building. I don't know if I need to read through all the points again, but they would be the same as the original demolition.
Just to be clear, Ms. Lorenz, you just stated this, but you would incorporate everything that you applied for the original application to this amended demolition application. So there's nothing, the same basis that you used before for the partial demolition, you would propose for this entire demolition?
Exactly.
Okay.
It meets the exact same criteria as the original demolition that was approved, and the points are exactly the same.
Just for my own learning, what was the intention to save it in the first place? Was there I mean, it was preferred to save it, but,
It was a financial decision.
okay,
It still was below flood, but we thought we could save the building.
bring it up.
But it also put us over the FAR and the lot coverage. It was just too big. So we weren't saving anything by raising the building.
It's also worth pointing out that at the back end of her addendum, Catherine has included her description from the original November 2023 demolition permit, responding to the 9 points in writing.
So are there any questions about the demolition portion of this? And if you need to see pictures of what the rear looks like, it would be in the application that we're going to discuss now. But
Just to be clear, Ms. Lorenz, and for a potential resolution, I just want to confirm something Mr. Johnson asked you. The driving factor for retaining a portion of the premises before was not HPC considerations, it was your own planning and cost efforts and cost savings and zoning issues dealing with FAR, but it wasn't some historic preservation purpose.
no, it had nothing to do with the Historic Preservation Commission. It is a non-contributing addition that was built in 2007.
Thank you.
So I have a question for our solicitor. Do we need to create a new resolution for this, or can we in fact do this via addendum to the original demolition resolution?
Whatever we do tonight will be embodied in a new resolution, because I think you're here for final, right? You've already got zoning?
Yes, we're here for final approval for the design of the new house.
So procedurally, just for the board's edification, we can potentially do a resolution that incorporates both demolition and the final design. It would be one resolution, and it would incorporate both of those things.
That said, then, would you like to continue presenting the final
Yes,
submission?
yes. So we can put this resolution aside, and we can put this piece of paper aside. I also included, which we will get to, is some revised elevations to the front of the house. But I would like to put that off to the side for a minute and go through the application page by page. I won't dwell on everything, but I think that some people weren't here for the original presentation and may have some questions. We were approved for conceptual approval. The first page of
So
the
Catherine, may I interrupt for just a second? Just for everybody's edification here, the conceptual approval that was approved on January 8th of 2024 was conditional upon 3 vertical dormer windows and removing the cross-hatching. Those were the only conditions at that time.
Yes. So, if we start off with the cover page, this elevation will change slightly after some advice from you all, and we will get to that when we go over the architectural drawings. This house is located at 266 Grant Street. On one side of Grant Street are historic homes. On this side of Grant Street, the homes are non-contributing. The first page indicates that we are going to build a new house. The second page goes over the materials, and I have a materials list, and I have cut sheets.
And you might want to revise your foundation submission, because Wolf Serenity decking isn't your foundation. It's block on page 27. If you look at your materials checklist,
Yes,
under foundation, you've got a repeat of the Wolf Serenity decking, but you really meant the block. and
Yes, I did.
Page 27.
yes, I did.
So I'm just going to take that as a corrected typo.
Yes. The foundation would be piles, CMU, and brick veneer.
And you have pointed that out on page 27 of your
Yes.
submission.
If we go to page 4, it shows us the taxes are paid. Page 5 gives us the names of the owner and the building information. Page 6 locates the block and lot of the house, which is about 4 houses away from Broadway. Page 7 indicates that this is in a R2 zone and it's in a historic zone, even though this house is non-contributing. Page 8, you would need a magnifying glass to read this, but this is the survey. And the reason I bring the survey up is we did a averaging survey because the houses are all different on that block with relationship to the front setback. And I just want to point that out to you because that'll be indicated in the design. When we had the averaging survey done, the average front yard setback would be 15 and a half feet. Page 9 indicates that we're in a flood zone of 8 feet. So the first floor of any house designed in this area would have to be at 10 feet above flood. So that everyone is aware, most of the house, there was a railroad station, I understand, or a turnaround in this area. Most of these houses that were built on this side of the street were built in the 1960s. Our house is a little Cape Cod with various additions to it. None of those houses on that area adjacent to my house, my client's house, are within the elevation that they need to be to comply with FEMA. So page 10 and 11 indicates by the city that this house is below flood. Page 12 is the city survey. The most important thing on the city survey would be page 13, which indicates that the house was built somewhere after 1956. That's the first portion of the house that we got approved to demolish. The middle portion of the house was built sometime in the 70s or 80s. And then the rear portion of the house that we want to demolish, in addition to the front portion, was built in 2007. And then the second page, number 14, indicates that this is a non-contributing building. So it meets the requirements, and we did receive approval for demolition. Page 15 is the streetscape. Across the street from us are historic homes. You can see an example of that on page 15. Below that is on our side of the street, and these homes are newer. There are some that are very new, and there are some that were built in the 60s. If we go to the next page, the top picture indicates our little Cape Cod with the big black arrow. That's the house we want to demolish. The bottom picture indicates the house across the street. Page 17 again shows the top, shows the houses along the neighbors to our little 266 Grant Street. If we go to the next page, it shows the rear of the house with a deck. This is a portion that we are adding to the demolition to demolish this rear portion of the house. If we go to page 19, it shows the front of the house and the side of the house with a spiral staircase that leads up to the rear deck. Page 20, I don't think is all zoning notes. We comply now. The new design complies with all zoning requirements. Page 21 is a page that I had a lot of discussions with at the last meeting. We are trying with this design to meet the criteria of massing, and also to, as our inspiration, was homes around the area that look like bungalows. So we're trying to do two things. We're reminiscent of the bungalow style, which if you walk around the corner on Windsor Avenue, there's a whole bunch of bungalows around there. Right down the street, there are bungalows. But what the bottom of this photograph shows you is a compilation of what's existing now. None of those homes, with the exception of the neighbor to the immediate right, are compliant with the FEMA height. All of those homes are non-contributing. The value of these properties are too high for them to stay this way. They are either going to have to raise these homes, or they're going to be demolished. And what I'm trying to describe in my above diagram is that the new house that we are proposing and all of the other homes in that area, if they were raised to the proper height, our house will fit in with the new homes. The massing would be correct. In my humble opinion, we have also designed this house so that it is 32 feet 9 inches above flood. We would be allowed to be 40 feet above flood.
40 inches.
But to comply with the massing and to blend in with the neighborhood, we chose to make the house not the full height that was allowed, but to try to make a house that still will blend in with the neighborhood. I'm not sure if you want to go over all of the different products, but I have cut sheets at the end. Asphaltic roof that would be diamond-shaped. Many of these bungalows used asbestos tiles that were sort of diamond in shape. We're not using asbestos anymore, but I am proposing diamond-shaped tiles. The next sheet shows hardy plank. The house will be sided with hardy plank board. We will have hardy bead board in the fascia.
Catherine?
The
Catherine?
windows,
Excuse me, regarding the hardy plank,
yes,
you had, it looks like you've selected cedar mill, the embossed wood.
yes.
And that, in practice, we've only approved plain. We've
Okay.
never approved anything that had the embossed wood look. mean,
I
that's-
think that would be acceptable
Yeah, when
with the
people have done it
clients.
before, we've
Yes.
required it to be.
So I'm going to make a note that we would use the hardy, smooth plank board.
Yeah.
I mean, just has like a wood.
Yeah.
Okay. Anderson 400 series windows would be used for the windows and one door. We're proposing to have the trim around the windows and the trim on the columns and the railing to be as manufactured by Intex, which is a local mill worker up out of Mays Landing. But in essence, it's a PVC material that replicates wood. That would be for the railings, the trim around windows, the column enclosures. Then on page 26, we're calling out decking to be Wolf decking, which is also a PVC decking. It would be a wood grain look. That would be at the front porch, that would be at the rear porch, and that would be at the screened-in porch at the rear of the house. On page 27, we show brick veneer. That would be used in any foundation areas or any proposed piles up in the front porch. And then finally, we come to the drawings. So I'm going to put the application down, and I'm going
Can I
to,
ask just one question?
Yes.
I came to the party late. This facade does not look like this facade.
that's right.
So can somebody just, were the railings change approved?
Yes.
Okay.
That's why
why I needed that.
that's why I reissued this, and
Okay.
I'm going to talk about that right now.
Okay, great.
So the first drawing in the packet,
Can I ask a question too, before you move on? One is, do I understand right that you're gonna retain the garage?
the garage is going to remain.
Okay, and then the other thing is, you've already agreed to one change. Chris, you're usually asking if they're authorized to speak for the owner?
So we've instituted a practice before an application proceeds without the owner present, and then it's that they authorize in writing via email. So Ms. Lorenz has been authorized before by the owner, and they've acknowledged that with Judy. And that,
I brought that up was because they agreed to one thing already tonight.
right.
I'm sure I asked that question.
And just so the board's aware, Judy and I instituted that practice to avoid having that conversation every time. You're not even heard unless you tell us in writing who's authorized to speak on your behalf before you get here. And Mr. Caparozzo is here, but really, Ms. Lorenz was the authorized individual through email, so.
They are okay with that change that you had proposed as well, so.
Mr.
Thank you.
Caparozza,
Thanks.
Of course, they were totally fine with it.
excuse me, Mr.
Technology,
Could you spell your
Not
last
the
name?
owner to approve.
CAPORIZZO.
Thank you so much.
Before we move on, just one final question. The brick veneer will be the red brick?
Yes, it would be the red brick.
Okay.
And we are proposing red brick in the driveway, ribbons, and in the rear of the house.
So Catherine, to be clear,
Yes,
what you're presenting tonight for final approval is this last set of 2 pages, G00 and A03, dated
yes,
January 2nd, 2025, and that's, Yogi, in response to our conceptual approval asking for
Yeah,
the
that,
revised.
I noticed the dates, but I didn't hear any, they were two different houses to me.
Substantially,
Sure.
those are the only changes you've made
Yeah.
since the conceptual.
yes.
That's really what we needed to hear, okay?
So I issued these 2 sheets to be substituted with the packet after discussion with the HPC new commissioner. Congratulations.
Thank you. So Catherine, I only have one comment, and I think a bunch of folks have asked questions. The only thing that is inconsistent, given the prior set and the new set, is that the floor plans on A01, second floor plan, still shows those 3 windows. So in order for us to have a complete and final set of accurate drawings, we would need to see that floor plan revised to show the single middle window.
Due to the time,
Understood.
I thought it was more important to change the elevations.
Yep.
And we would fix the plan when we start the construction
Yeah,
document.
we only spoke late last week, as I recall.
Right, so we jumped on it.
Yep. So, are there questions? Do we want to go around the room? Yogi, do you have any further questions?
I just, why was the facade changed, the railing? I'm, be honest with you, I like the old railing better than the new railing. It's very sterile. This is Cape May. Yeah, but I'm assuming it was approved by the board and the homeowner liked it better.
Talking about the Chinese Chippendale?
Yeah, the change from one to the other.
Yeah,
The-
yeah,
The new one's just plain
The
over.
new one's just plain,
This
it's,
has got the Chippendale.
yeah, it's got,
The new one has the Chippendale.
pardon me?
The new one has the Chippendale.
Is that what it's called, Chippendale? Okay.
Yeah, Chinese Chippendale.
I'm talking about the design in the front rails,
Ah,
is what I'm speaking about.
They are.
they are,
It just,
The old one was straight.
Right.
The new one is,
yeah, it's,
This is what was,
yeah, I mean, it's
So-
day and night. When you look at the house, it's day and night,
Yeah.
to me.
so Catherine, would you like to respond to that?
okay. The design of the house is exactly the same. There are 2 things that were changed. One is, instead of having these 3 funny little windows here
Right,
On the second floor?
on the second floor, we put in 1 double-hung window that would be more in keeping with the style of the building.
And the pattern of the first floor
And,
fenestration?
exactly. So it just lines up, the windows line up better than what was originally proposed,
okay.
okay? Then the second thing was, we had, a year ago, had a meeting with the informal panel, and it was decided that the Chippendale style inserted panel was more, the decorative panel was the preferred use for the railing. So it didn't translate to the new set of drawings, so that's why I issued showing that we are going to insert the decorative panel in the railings,
Okay.
as opposed to what we show here. Yeah, here is just a straight up and down,
Yeah, yeah,
all the
yeah.
way around.
Okay, for some reason, maybe I just don't have that.
Did you get this one? It was in there too, in the packet?
This, yeah.
Yeah, that is going to be the appearance.
This is
what's
the
gonna go
final.
top.
That's the final.
Okay, I was,
G00 dated January 2nd
Yeah.
is the latest set.
Yeah.
okay, mine was dated January 7th, which would make it a year old.
wow.
That's why, and this is December 26th.
Yeah, they're, they,
I don't have the date.
drawings were revised after I made the initial submission.
But there's a stamp on our plans, but that's an HPC stamp. The
Oh, okay,
revised
I-
plan with the new window and the Chippendale
Gotcha, that's the
Yes.
is
official.
dated 12/6/2024,
Yeah,
correct?
that's what my G00 is dated.
Right.
It's
So
it's
that-
dated the day after.
I'm good, 'cause I
The
love
last
Actually, it's not. It's got a second HPC date up under issue,
Oh, that's right.
right? So
Up,
that's,
yes, it has a second.
Not the
HPC.
receive date, but the
And
author's
this
date.
might be easier,
That's
if the second sheet that's stapled, it might be easier to see the elevation there, I'm not sure.
Doesn't make
Okay.
much difference. This is
I-
the
I-
latest.
This is the one I like. I was just going by the dates that I saw.
Good,
Okay.
good.
So I apologize.
So you got what you suggested?
Yeah. So, hey, my first thing I did right, maybe, I don't know.
It's a little complicated
Yeah.
because,
so we'll clean this up at the end here. I think I have a way to clean
Yes.
this up, for you, so.
okay,
Steve?
But it appears that the two suggestions that were given by the board at the time have been addressed. Do we agree with that?
That's what I understand, yeah. The windows.
So with that being said, I mean, I think that the client or the applicant has done what they needed to do to address the concerns that were granted that were addressed, that were mentioned at the time. The new design seems appropriate and professional to me, and I would suggest we move forward.
Tom? Good? Yes.
Yeah, I agree with
agree with that.
Steve's observation.
Yeah, good idea, Steve.
Janice?
I agree.
Jake?
Yes, one thing I just want to compliment you too on the fact that a little detail, like all the exposed rafter tails, you don't see that too often, and it really helps it blend into the fabric of the community.
I think those kind of details can
Yeah.
make a
It
building.
really stands out. Very, very good.
Since Jake brought that up, in lots of those ones, the extended rafters have a cut just a little bit, so they, they come out and it has a cut in and a 45-degree cut. You'll see that in a lot of the bungalow buildings. And I certainly wouldn't mind if you followed that. If you look at the building right behind the Mainstay Inn, that bungalow right there has a very good
Yes.
example of that.
I've walked by that many times.
Yeah, and I've seen a lot of others like that. that give-
Yes,
Yeah,
so I'm going to add that to the detail sheet
Okay.
for the construction
Okay.
documents.
B? Have you any comments?
I don't have anything.
Okay, how about you, Kevin?
Kevin, sorry, just make sure your mic's on.
Typically, when we are dealing with a renovation of a house that has a structure behind it, like the garage, we usually require that the garage blend in with the design and structure of the house so that, they look like the same. You're not just renovating the front house, you're tearing it down. So is the garage now in keeping with the house, the look of the house?
The garage is a plain garage that was probably built around 1970.
Is
We
it a-
were not planning to do any work at this time on the garage.
Is it sided similar to the
It's
house?
a square box that holds 2 cars
So,
and has a gabled roof.
okay. So I mean,
We weren't-
what's the exterior look like on the garage? Is it
I
like
can't
similar to
remember if it has
clapboard?
windows on either side of the doors.
Windows, just an entrance door to the right of the actual garage door, blue trim with white siding that matches the current structure.
Okay. I guess I'm good with that.
Okay, so, with all that said, I would like to make a motion that we grant final approval based on the following 4 conditions. And then one clarification, that the materials, the application indicate foundations of pile CMU with brick veneer. Number 2, that you revise A01 on the second floor plan to indicate 1 middle window on the second floor in the front, to be consistent with the elevations. 3, hardy plank smooth instead of embossed wood texture. 4, rafter tail revision. And that the 5th condition that I would like to request is that you make one last final set of drawings with a current date that incorporates all of these conditions and revisions so that our field representative will have one set of documents that he can use rather than looking at 3 or 4, and that you submit that with a cover letter that identifies and itemizes those above 4 revisions that you've made and where we can find them in the drawings, to make it easy for the review committee to look very clearly and say, yep, this set of documents is accurate and in accordance with what this motion was.
And I would just,
That handles the construction part, it doesn't handle the demolition part.
that was going to be my
Sorry.
next comment.
Thank you. Yes.
We have to knock the other one down before she can build the new one up.
So we'll amend the,
May I amend your resolution?
amend the
I would move that the resolution on the table be amended to include a permission for demolition of the structure that is applied for, it having been found that you made all the necessary points required by our ordinance to establish the right for demolition.
But excluding the garage, right?
Excluding the garage.
But you haven't asked for that.
no, it's keeping the, there's-
You've never asked for demolition for the garage.
I never asked for permission to, I wanted to keep
I
the
just wanted to
garage.
confirm the motion excluded the garage. It's going to remain.
And Chris, from a procedure perspective, approving the demolition and the new construction is appropriate. Generally, we bifurcate the two, so I'm just trying to,
Generally, we would, and we can, but given the nature of this application, and it's already kind of 90% of the way there.
Right.
I think the board can entertain a motion for both.
great.
Having added that, can I second your motion?
you may.
All right, so I will second the motion as amended or as
So-
supplemented.
Any further discussion other than one last point I'd like to make? Generally, Catherine, we are attempting to reduce the number of conditions in final reviews because it gets very, very complicated to try and match a whole set of minor revisions in a full set of documents. That's why I'm requesting a completely new set of documents that would allow us with a cover letter to very quickly identify them in review, so you don't have to come back next month and sit before us and give us 13 more copies.
Got it.
Is that okay?
Okay.
Okay. Any other comments, discussion? Let's take a vote.
Mr. Carroll.
Yes.
Ms. Bisagno. Ms. Wilson Stridick.
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson.
Yes.
Mr. Hammerin. Mr. Testa.
Yes.
Mr. Becker.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much.
Congratulations.
And a Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Thank you.
So I guess you can tell your, is it Mr. Caparizzo, it's your dad? Mom?
Father-in-law, so
Father-in-law.
the first good thing I've had to tell them.
There you go. Congratulations. Thank you. Happy New Year.
Well,
Yep. Okay, next on the agenda is CMC of Cape May LLC, 721 Beach Avenue. If you could please come up and tell us who you are and what your role is. This is, I think, your, fourth or fifth time with us?
Counted at least 3.
So we've been in these meetings 3 times, and at least twice that I can recall, maybe 3 times in review meetings on Tuesday mornings, so.
Just like come in here.
Yeah, yeah. Gotta have a little party. So could you please introduce yourselves?
My name's Gwen Finley, I'm the owner.
I'm Scott Johnson. I'm their contractor of Johnson's Handyman and Home Remodelers.
The floor is yours.
Okay, well, I think we finally came down to something that we could possibly use. It is a TimberTech product. It's the closest to a wood look. I think we discussed this before. As a matter of fact, I think you showed it. We showed it to Kevin, showed it to John there. As a matter of fact, I don't know if we pointed out the one, I'm going to move this chair. Right. Pointed out the one, the exact one that we'd be using, which would be similar to that. See the actual product. And you can pass that around if you'd like. And this is made by AZAC. It's the closest to possible wood that you can have without being actual wood. The mounts on it are the ones that I was looking for, which are, I can inspect, we can make sure that they're going to be, that they're safe, they're tight, and because, like I said, we do go up to a 4th floor, and we're concerned with people leaning against them, which they do. You have people that are sitting in the chairs there again, in front of the hotel room and other, linebackers leaning against the railings. We want to make sure those linebackers stay on the third floor. So,
So after discussing with you and Kevin, we picked this one. And so we're just here for the approval now so that we can start our work.
Okay. So,
Can I comment on a couple of things? One is, they have come to the review committee several times, at least twice. I think we all had initially considered the idea of having wood railings, could not really find a product that matched up well with that. In reviewing, all the other properties are along the same front of the beach there. They're all using this or a very, very similar product. The house is, or the structure is non-contributing, we should note that. And so this is the one that, along with, well, actually, we looked at two, and either one of them seemed to meet our requirements. We found where this is consistent with the standards, so we did check for that. That's about all I can give you from the review committee.
John?
any comments? Just going to go around the room.
Yeah, sure.
Jake, any comments?
Looks good to me.
Okay. James?
I walked by a few times and I thought, yeah, that would look good. That would be fine. I mean, it's a lot of
I'm glad to see that somebody's finally chosen a product. And having handled this one and seen one, it's better than what I've seen before. I would appreciate, though, when you put in the application, that it stops saying or aluminum.
I
Because,
thought I crossed that out.
well, not in mine you did. It's similar AZEK or aluminum. So I'm assuming you're not submitting aluminum.
No.
You're submitting the TimberTech,
Correct.
that's the AZAC.
and that's what you intend
Yeah.
to do.
Sorry about that.
And I'm assuming also this is a final approval?
Yes.
Yes.
Because nothing's checked on my, and my last question is, we're not stick building, right? It's coming in sections from the AZEK factory,
Yes, correct.
right? It's coming in sections.
Yes.
And fortunately, it looks a lot better than some of the other bracketing and couplings and things. I mean, it was, some of that was
Well,
pretty,
it's been a guessing game.
no, some of that was pretty bad looking. I mean, this stuff is at least credible looking.
Yeah, it'll
and,
look nice.
I'm glad you've progressed to that, so I'm okay with it.
Great, thank you.
So this couples to the post. And looking at these, it looks like the coupling that it uses is about as close to invisible as possible. It doesn't
Exactly.
reach out and bulk it up at the size.
No.
No.
What that is there will be a L bracket underneath of it, or a metal bracket that kind of blends into the handrail and kind of hidden. You may see a little bit of that. In between that and the post is a small, thin rubber gasket, maybe about 1/16 of an inch. And that keeps the water from flowing inside, and that's pretty much invisible compared to other mounts that were on the other railings.
And the spacing between your balustrades are what?
I think there's 3.5 inches in between, 4 inches at the centers.
With a spindle of, with a spindle of what? Of a baluster?
Spindle?
In between the balusters?
The baluster, what's the thickness of the baluster?
Oh, it's 1.25 inches or
So
1.5 inches.
one and a quarter plus?
We've seen so many of them.
It's 5/4 at 4-inch center.
Yeah, exactly. So it's the same as like a wooden spindle.
Yeah.
Like what you'd get at Home Depot, or
All right, thank you.
same thickness.
Steve, any comments?
No, nothing for me. Sounds like the process went.
Yeah, I'm good. I like that. It's a nice product.
Can I make one more comment just for the benefit of the applicant here? And that's, remember too, that they are going to replace the chain link fence that's around the pool with the same material.
And the application does say that.
It does, and we just,
So, once we get rid of the aluminum, I'm assuming it's the TimberTech all around.
One quick question. Is there any adhesive for that or just the locking system?
It's just a locking system.
Okay.
Packet.
Yeah.
Interesting.
For academic purposes, what's the total amount of linear feet? Because you are all railings there.
Excuse me?
What's the total linear feet that you will be?
Oh, God, I know
installing?
there's about 108 pieces, so
Of 6 or 8?
a mix of 6 and 8. So it's, and there's some fours in there, like I'll be cutting some down. We do have posts that are this close together, is that
So 700 or 800 running feet.
probably, yeah.
Rail. I mean, railing is so prominent on this building.
It is.
It's the rails.
It is. I have my work cut out for me for the winter.
So just a question for clarification purposes.
Yes, sir.
You had shown us this photo,
Yes,
and is this the outcome that's going to be on the hotel?
yes.
Like railing and spindle and all, this is what it?
That's exactly what it is right there.
Okay.
What's that product name?
That should be the Radiance Rail Express.
Radiance Rail, right?
Yeah, the Express.
Timber Tech Radiance Express, right? Okay, I would like to move then that we approve this application as final for the railings to be replaced by Timber Tech Radiance Express to match the existing with the exception that they be square 5/4 inch spindles at 4-inch centers. And that's the end of my motion. However, just like the last submission, I would like to request from you that there's one condition. And the condition is that you give us another application, no additional fee, and get rid of all this redundant stuff. All we need to see is the product you want to use, so that, again, we can hand this to our field advisor, who can go out in the field and say, this is it. There's no guesswork.
Can I say something on that?
Yeah, because there's like 40 pages here we don't need.
Me copying and making them however, but if I took this, hold on one second.
Yeah, so we made hundreds and hundreds of copies.
Yes, yes. Better than last time. There was
No,
like-
last time we had the stress tests as well.
Yeah, I would simply include this.
Yeah. I mean, this is your,
Cut sheet saying that
this is your cut sheet.
it's the Timber Tech Radiance
Express.
Express. Yep. Excellent.
Now, by the cut sheet, you just that,
If you want,
okay.
From their catalog, there'll be a page that says
so now. I've
Timber
taken
Tech
that
Radiance
off.
Express.
Does that work, John? I just took that off. I had it all.
No, because it still says
you need to.
ASAC and aluminum, so literally, no more choices, right?
Right.
If you just give us the simplest possible,
So that with the bottom.
that, and all you need to do is go online to TimberTech's website.
Yeah.
And download the PDF cut sheet of the Radiance Express, stable it to this, and say, this is what we're using everywhere.
Okay.
Yep. And include, of course, the fence for around the pool, because there's two components to this.
Right, and nowhere do we want to see the word aluminum.
Okay, so I'll repeat the motion. I move that this submission be approved for final for the
Yeah.
replacement of the railing to be TimberTech Radiance Express using square spindles, 5/4 inch, 4-inch centers.
Okay. Yeah, I'll have to look up that with the, just for the Radiance Rail Express, because every time I punch it in, their whole brochure comes up.
I had the same problem when I was looking it up as well.
Yeah.
Yes. So do I have a second for this motion?
Second.
Motion has been seconded. Any further discussion?
Mr. Carroll.
Yes.
Ms. Pisagno.
Yes.
Ms. Wilson Stridick.
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson. Mr. Hammerin. Mr. Testa.
Yes.
Mr. Becker.
Yes.
Thank you.
So do we come back again with these packets? Or just
Just submit
drop
them.
them off?
No, I-
Just drop them off for Judy.
I just need one,
One?
Just one?
one final packet.
Oh, you are wonderful.
Just one. And maybe,
So I've
maybe
got all-
5 pages max.
Yeah, mine is this thick, so
Please
just
don't
take
keep telling
everything out
Judy
that
she's
we don't-
wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Happy New Year.
Miss us.
Yeah, we have.
Oh, we have plenty of builders.
And you got that?
We're so bad we don't miss anybody.
Oh, do you want your sample?
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Just so I can.
Make sure they send you the right thing, right.
Okay, folks, so that concludes
Have a
our.
great evening.
Thank you.
Take care, thank you.
Take care.
That concludes the old business portion of tonight's meeting. Moving on to new business. 30205 Washington LLC, so this is for 302 to 304 Washington Street on the mall. So applicant, please come forth and state your name and what your role in the project is, please.
Hello, my name is Robert Shapansky, Shepanski. I'm the property manager for 302 305 Washington LLC. Application was submitted on behalf of the owner from Monzo, Catneys, and Delalis, and I believe I was cleared to represent without legal representation.
Excuse me, sir. Can you use the microphone a little closer, please?
Yep, there you go. Right up here.
Let me ask one clarifying question before we get started. It says that this is new business, but I'm seeing a application that appears to have been denied. Is there
Yes, so-
context there?
It's a good question, Steve. This was submitted to the review committee, and its initial submission in its initial form was denied. So what you're seeing before you is what was submitted in response to that denial. Okay?
Denied in review.
Denied in review, yes.
So I'm here with a full application for the commission. Essentially, 302 Washington Street is a commercial building at the western end of the Washington Street Mall. It's constructed in the late 1800s. It is a contributing building. The owner acquired the building back in 2017 and completed renovation work that was started by the previous owners, which included remodeling the second floor interiors and first floor retail stores, as well as installing windows and siding on the building. Today's application is to complete siding on the northeast elevation, which currently has Dutch lap wood siding. We'd be replacing that with wood 6-inch clapboard, similar with the other three sides. There's photos that represent that. Second request in the application is for the entry door to Unit D, which is the cheese store. And I'd be happy to answer any questions, but I spent about an hour or two in the new library here in town researching the books. I couldn't find any historical photos of this entry door on this building. There's lots of shots looking north up Washington Street, which do show the facade of the building, but because it's behind a bay window, you can't actually see it. So, to my knowledge, I don't believe the door or the transom above is likely original. It doesn't actually fit with the facade of the building. The transom above the entry door has a different thickness of stiles, even though it is multifaceted light panel above the door. It's just unique. So our application seeks to remove this door and light and install a French wood door and plain transom that matches the other 4 entry doors on the building, all shown in your package. The facade, as you can see, the front facade isn't 100% symmetrical. You know, the windows aren't dead center under the gables. The bay windows are slightly off-centered from the gables. The right side of the facade has a French wood door and clear transom above it, with some visible siding and trim around it, whereas the left side of the front facade has this oversized entry door and large transom that doesn't allow for any siding or trim. It also extends all the way to the roof overhang. And these spaces would be, refilled after the 36-inch door and transom is installed. It would allow for trim and painting on the facade of the building.
So, Mr. Shapansky, just a couple of clarification questions.
Yes, sir.
The scope of this submission is strictly limited to the replacement of that one section of siding
Correct?
and the replacement of one door.
Correct.
So my question is, this set of drawings that are dated August 15th of 2016 that were submitted,
Yes.
this is purely informational?
Yes.
Was this project ever implemented?
Yes.
So these Anderson 400 windows were installed in this building?
No.
They were not?
No. I don't know if those plans were completed. We installed wood double-hung windows
Got it.
from Cape May Lumber. I believe they're Gen Wild brand. There was a HPC application and approval in 2017. I don't have a copy of that with me, but some of those details weren't fully vetted on that renovation plan.
So this is purely informational? You're-
Yes, sir.
You're requesting one door replacement and the replacement of the siding?
Correct.
Okay. So comments? Tom?
Robert, the other three doors, do they have a piece of bevel glass in the window there? There's three, it looks like all the way around, there's a nice bevel in the glass.
I don't believe so. I would need to confirm that. I know that these doors are older. It's a single pane of tempered glass. So I think that what you're seeing in the photos is condensation that's building up on them.
Okay. I was just going to say, if they are beveled, I'd like to see that in the new one too. But if they're not,
Sure.
we want to do them the same.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I just want to clarify. The front page of your application states 3 doors. So you're only proposing to replace 1 door?
One door, correct.
Well, one door. Mhm. 3 match, 1 doesn't.
Okay, so we're going to cross out the 3 then on the final application, the front page?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Correct.
it says 3, but you mean 1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's retail unit D. There might have been some-
The cheese store
The
right
cheese
now.
store, correct, yes.
Other comments? Kevin, do we want to go around the room, have comment?
The only thing I could say from the review committee is, we were looking at that one side, which had Dutch lap, I think it was on it, and it is really not visible. It's about a 2-foot alley. It's even got, obstruction in it. So, it seems logical to try to match it to the other 3 revealed sides of the building, rather than try to, go back and say, okay, we need, we want that to be same for same. That's the only thing I can really add to the discussion.
I don't have any questions.
No comment?
No, it looks fine.
The Dutch lap siding has had it from the look of the
Yeah,
condition.
you can see right through it.
It's
in a
just,
few
I mean, I
areas.
know you showed the most atrocious view of it, but it is also bizarre that we
Yes.
have a building that has had 3/4 in overlap clapboard and 1/4
It
in Dutch
is.
lap.
It is.
The Dutch was probably the original, and just never replaced because it was in an alley.
It must have been just too hard to work on.
Yeah.
But I understand and agree with rationalization to make all 4 sides the same.
Just for reference, the report states clapboard siding, and it doesn't specify how many sides or the difference in the 2 sides, so.
Yeah, and certainly applaud your program to make them all the same. That'll certainly add, even though it's in an alley.
Right.
Right? And I don't think anybody can argue with the rationale of making all the doors the same either. Tom?
No, I'm all for the application.
Steve?
Yeah, I think in general, I definitely understand what the applicant's doing. I think I would agree with it. For me, the only thing that I'd love to just have maybe some context from the group on is the one standard with adding or revising a window as part of our plans. It says altering the size of an existing window is not appropriate in visible locations without evidence. I don't know how to react to that. I don't see evidence to change it. I don't see evidence that it was that or it should be this. But as I read the standard, I mean, the standard would lead me to believe that I don't see evidence as to why we would change that window, because we are altering an existing window, and just by the lines of our own guidance, it says it's not appropriate. Now, that said, I think it makes sense from a symmetry perspective. I think it makes sense from a streetscape perspective, so maybe that kind of trumps that language, and I would probably support that, but figured I would
Steve,
just call it
it's
out.
also, it's a door assembly. It's really not just a window, right? I mean, it's a transom, which I see it as a whole structure, door plus transom on top. And I'm sorry, even though I like the single one better than the smaller ones, I think the rationale is not going to damage the structure's status by having all 4 look the same.
Comments, Yogi?
Yeah, no, I kind of like it. Nice project.
So I only have a couple questions.
Yes, sir.
So you're not talking about touching or renovating or revising the transom over the door, is that correct?
The transom over the door would be removed, and it would be replaced with a door and transom assembly that would be similar to the other 3 entry doors in the packet.
So
The-
this
and the
one,
rationale for this is that it wasn't original.
There's no evidence that it's original that I have found.
feature.
So that's the real question.
That is
and
the real question.
That's why Steve was confused, because if we had evidence that this was the original, then we wouldn't approve it. Is that enough of a reason to table this?
Tom, what's your thought about that?
Well, that window, it's a handsome transom, but it doesn't go with any other thing in the building. I agree, it might be the one original thing left, but it's kind of looking out of place when everything else was changed around it.
So,
Wouldn't consider putting 3 that look like that one back, would you?
If it was sized correctly, it would be doable, but like I said, the stiles in the door are different size rails.
Yeah.
There's no room for trim, et cetera. I would entertain that, if you wanted to see that multifaceted panel above every entry door. There's a second entry door on the facade, and there are 2 entry doors on the east elevation.
And Carpenters.
Yeah.
Right.
When we purchased the building, those were air conditioners, mind you, and we removed those, installed air conditioning, and replaced the transoms.
oh, the other 2 transoms are of a different proportion, so I don't think that,
Right, they're sized to the door.
And is this purely a design decision, or is there?
Well, essentially, what's driving it is I need a new entry door here. It's been destroyed, there's no jam left, there's a lot of things. The operators requested that we replace the door, even though I've tried to repair it. And because of its size and shape, I'd rather install a 36-inch door. This one's about 40 inches wide. It's oversized in height, and the transom, again, is different than
The other
what's-
3 doors are 36
Yes,
inches.
Yes, with a 16-inch transom above.
This.
yes. Yeah, but I didn't find anything about the windows.
Well, the
Oh.
reason it's not the right size is because it's original.
Yeah, see, so I'm very uncomfortable with removing that transom, because it appears to me that it is original, and in fact, maybe the reason why not the ones over the other doors aren't, because I don't think there likely were transoms there, because this is pretty clearly the main entrance. And so I'm thinking that the other windows that are above the storefront windows may have had some decorative component to them, or this was the only one because it was the primary entrance. So Janice, I agree with you. I would love to see if we could figure out a
Yeah,
way
that's the real
to
question.
discover whether this was original or not, because it would be a shame to lose it.
So I'm just asking,
Say it again?
Kevin, yeah, I just think that this is far more attractive.
Yeah, I mean, it's a
It's
beautiful,
original.
it's beautiful, right?
Yeah.
And it adds a whole layer of character and,
Absolutely.
right? So, question for you. Mr. Shapansky, if we were to ask you to come back to us with a little bit more research about this, would you be willing to go through that effort to see if you can find out whether or not this is original or not?
I could, like I stated, I spent an hour at our new library here. I flipped through all the magazines looking for historical photos. Couldn't find a facade picture. And for the reason being that there's no room for siding, there's no room for trim, and that the doors styles are different from the window styles, I would assume that this, without evidence, would be a handyman to install. That's my assumption, because it doesn't match any of the other ones in the building, which I never touched. And you can see all the other doors in historical photos that show a clear transom that's about 16 inches above the door.
A single clear transom
Right.
above all of
Those
them?
photos I could bring as evidence that this one isn't original. But there's no photos I've found or a description in the report of, of it being original.
But it is strange to think that this is as a main, it's a bigger door. It might be a main entrance, but this is almost like a duplex.
It's licensed for 4 more.
And yet that door
Pardon me?
is smaller than this.
Four.
Yeah.
That transom is different.
Rented
But that wasn't always that way.
It was
That's
rented
what I
as
meant, it's a two-something.
2 when
This
we
is a 3.
acquired it.
No.
It had 4 meters, it was.
Yeah, okay, because I knew it wasn't, it didn't look like that all.
So it's possible
Yeah.
that when this was renovated to be this particular function, somebody thought that was historic and installed it, and it wasn't part of the original building. That's what I think we're trying to figure out.
Well, I mean, lots of people would install these
We
on
know.
their own accord because they like them, and,
Yeah.
because it doesn't fit necessarily with the facade, meaning it goes all the way to the roof line, it doesn't allow for trim or either side, it's not centered in the opening, leads me to believe that it was a handyman install at any point in time between now and 1870 or whenever it
So
was
Robert, let
built.
me ask you this, is that a crown mold that's running around the ceiling?
It has a beaded
Exterior
wood
stuff?
ceiling, I think it's just a bed molding
Oh,
or
that's crown, all the way across the same piece?
only the facade has that roof overhang, but yeah.
Okay.
It's not the same size as the other.
I'm sorry, Jude, can you say it again?
He's saying that this transom is not the same size as this.
No, it is not. It's clearly larger and it has smaller rails
Transom
and
to fit a
styles.
3-foot door, as opposed to.
But it's a 40-inch door, so the transom itself is 40 inches as well.
Well,
We don't have the survey for this building.
well, the survey's interesting, because the survey talks about,
Where is it? Is it in here?
it doesn't specifically, it just says,
Yeah, it is.
Oh, okay.
it says that historic restaurant windows on Perry Street, historic window frames and wood windows, but it doesn't specifically talk about this decorative window.
What's the date of the building?
Okay.
It was developed as the Center House Hotel in 1850.
That sash work in the window that we seem to like a lot dates really to the bungalow years. If you look at a lot of the bungalow houses in town, that diamond at the top and then straight or fairly plain panes below it was, like 1890s to 1920 or so. So I would be willing to bet that window would certainly not go back to 1850.
Yeah, it looks like it was redeveloped between 1890 and 1909, which would match the time frame you're talking about.
I don't see any reason that compels us to presume that window, that transom is original. We're striving to find out whether or not it is, but it sounds like it's as likely not to be as it is to be. Maybe a question to who has a burden of doing what, but I don't see anything that tells me that that is necessarily an original window, original transom, which we would preserve.
So let's let that sit for a minute while I ask my only other question. And that is, what were you proposing for the hardware on this new door? Because
well,
the
it
other
would-
two were brass, and this door currently looks like it has,
It would have brass, a pull plate, similar to the other entry doors. If you flip through the photos.
Yep.
They all have a brass pull plate with a mortise lock above.
so you would match that?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Just one other question.
It would be a
If-
painted wood door, black, like the other ones, with white trim.
One question for Tom, maybe. If that were not original to the 1850 construction, but was put in somewhere in between 1890 and 1910, would we not try to preserve that still? Because it's now still within the, the period of interest for us.
We do preserve buildings that have lots of different periods of history associated with them.
Right.
Some of the ones that got turned into like a colonial revival, like right across from the Mainstay Inn, was actually a Victorian cottage that looked like everything else on the street. And yet, we've tried to preserve it as it was changed to that. So yeah, you could kind of look at that either way. It is interesting that there's only one that was done that way. And I would be hard to figure out exactly when that might have happened. If you were really lucky, you'd take that thing out and on the side of it would say "Ship to hand and wear" in 1910 or something. But that kind of find is rare.
Yeah.
And by that time, it would be too late.
Yeah.
Right, so-
So, folks, it seems like we have a couple of choices here. We can either entertain a motion to approve this and see what happens, or we can entertain a motion to invite Robert to table this pending further research. And I would like to see how you guys are thinking about this.
I don't think there's any need to rush. So if
John, when you say we'll see what happens, what do you mean by that?
Well-
If you change it to plain,
So,
it's going to look the same.
Mr. Shapansky has, when I asked him if he would be willing to do a little bit further research, he said yes, which would then, our move would be to table it pending his further research when he can come back and present to us the results of that research. So I think our two choices are either that, or we move to approve it and see whether it passes or not. So do I hear a motion for one or the other?
Well, I see no harm in extra time, right? I mean, this is not an immediate thing. If further research will indicate whether you can find evidence of this being original or some add-on or with a date to it, I think we'd appreciate knowing that, because that's better than just ripping it out right away.
So would you like to make a motion?
I think I just made it.
That
So
we're
we'll,
going to
a
table.
motion to table the application as presented now, subject to the waiver by the applicant of the 45-day running period, and to return to us with further research indicating any further conclusions about the origins of that transom. Is it original? Was it an add-on? Can you establish dates?
Another path, Chris, just before you speak, is would we approve the other part of it, the siding? Does the applicant need to get moving on the siding
Oh, good question.
and not the door?
I think we should approve the siding personally.
So that would be part of your motion.
Yeah, so if you're going to go with the siding, I would, and we would table what I just said, but we would approve the portion of the application relating to using the clapboard instead of in place of the Dutch siding, Dutch lap siding.
So, Mr. Shapansky, the board's prepared to act on the siding portion of this to make all the siding the same, and on that side that needs repair. In connection with that, though, they would seek to table the door and the transit discussion to get more information on that. And you would be waiving the time for decision for the board to act on that so that you could go out and get hopefully some additional information. We could come back here next month and continue that discussion. Would you be amenable to that? Would the applicant be amenable to waiving the time for decision for those two things?
Will I get a letter in writing regarding the siding to move forward in construction?
So what would happen is if they voted on that tonight, there would be a resolution at the next meeting for the siding,
Mm-hmm. Okay.
just like every other
Yeah,
applicant that gets
yeah.
approval.
I believe it's okay. You're not outlining how much research I need to do or the format of which I need to present
Well,
it, other
we
than,
can discuss that in the sense that I'd like to see something proving one way or the other, and if it's short of proof, I'm willing to accept that this is not an original transom.
So is there anybody on the commission who would be interested in helping Mr. Shapansky do this research and see if?
here's what I know I can provide. I can provide historic photos of the other doors that don't have a faceted transom. I know those exist. I've seen 3 or 4 shots. And this is the only door that I can't see in a photo that I have looked for.
So, B, you talked to me this week about having photographs of the shops along Washington Street before. Well, it'd be interesting to look through those photos to see if they're there.
Are you telling us that you have not played in this particular structure?
No, Jim, I was afraid you were going to ask me that. On my 3rd birthday in 1892. This one, I can't, the only thing I can remember about this one is it was white and dilapidated, and that there was a lady by the name of Lila who had a shop in there, and she was a seamstress. But this one, I'm drawing a blank.
Yeah.
I'm all for seeing if this is historic and keeping that transom. I think it's gorgeous. But
Yeah.
You know, I'd be willing to go and look at it. And Tom, if you'd be willing to join me,
Sure.
like, we could go look and see how it's constructed, and we might be able to detect from that some evidence of approximately when it was installed, based upon what else is there. So I'd be willing to do that. Maybe we could at least do that to help you.
Sure.
And in the meantime, we'll look for some photos, and you can look for some photos, and we could reconvene next month.
I will, I'll get this information to you, my research within 3 weeks. That would give you a week to maybe look at it before the next hearing.
Perfect.
Or we can just look at it at the next hearing together and try and make a decision then.
Okay, so, sounds like
Now I'm befuddled.
the motion.
I think I made the motion to table that portion, subject to further research.
Perfect.
uh,
And?
With, you know, with the return and waiving the statutory period, and then we did approve the sign.
Do we have a second for this motion?
I'll second.
So moved and seconded. Judy?
Janice, was that you?
Yes.
Thank you.
Just need you to sign that.
Oh, I thought it was my copy. I was like, he's quick.
Mr. Carroll.
Yes.
Ms. Pasagno.
Yes.
Ms. Wilson Stridick.
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson.
Yes.
Mr. Hammerin. Mr. Testa.
Yes.
Mr. Becker.
Yes,
Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you.
So did we take a motion on the
So-
siding?
Yeah, the motion was part of the motion.
Okay, approve siding and
So,
table
Robert-
Table the other
table the
portion.
Robert, if during this 3-week period, you'd like to come and share with us whatever you found, we meet here on Tuesday mornings at 9 o'clock, and all you need to do is call Judy and say you want to come in and meet with us, and maybe we can expedite it. Okay?
I mean, and I'd like to come to a conclusion when we come to this again, that it is more likely than not that the window, the transom is original. Because we have to weigh this some point.
Yeah.
I mean, we can't just go on speculation that it might be original.
I'm unwilling to assess that yet without further research, yeah.
I just mean the conclusion part.
Got it. Yep,
Still have to do the research.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so that concludes our new business. It appears as if there's nobody in the audience for public comment, so I don't think we have any public comment. Just a couple last things. I've spoken with all of you, I believe, about a public meeting workshop that would be aimed at helping us, given that we're now entering sort of the next phase of the transition of HPC, realigning around what it is, why are we really here? Why are we really doing this? What is the purpose of this? And using a few frameworks of exercises to help us all have a voice in alignment around what our true purpose is and what it is each of our roles are, because each of us brings something different and complementary to this organization, and really to be able to collectively understand what each of us cares about and what are we really bringing to this so that we can all be working together as closely as a team as possible. So I believe I've heard all of you say that you'd be willing to do that. Is that accurate? So timeframe. The only constraints that I've heard thus far is, B, you can't come before like 3 o'clock in the afternoon on a
If it's
school
only a
day.
one-time thing, I
Yeah.
can come anytime except February 18th. I will be out of town that
Okay.
day.
So let me just canvass you folks. I'm thinking this is probably a 4-hour event, and I think we take a break and have some refreshments, right?
Wait for the public to show up.
Wait for the public to show up, because the public, we want to invite them, be as transparent as possible. So generally speaking, would this be a daytime thing, an evening thing, or a weekend thing? Let's just look at those three. Are there any preferences?
Daytime.
Daytime.
Daytime?
I think daytime's a clear
No
winner.
weekend, weekend's off the table. So daytime, not evening. So maybe an afternoon.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Judy, maybe you and I can discuss this tomorrow and see if we can identify some potential dates, because we'll need to, we want to do it in this room if we can, yes?
Yeah, I'll have to.
Look at availability.
Yes, what did you say, Dee? Are you able to attend in the day?
She said yes.
What? I'm sorry, I didn't.
Yeah, Dee said she could attend during the day.
Once.
It's a one-time thing.
Once.
Oh, sure, if it's a one-time thing, anytime, anytime.
That's great.
Except for February 18th.
Except for.
Except for February,
But-
not February
but
18th. All right.
I think daytime is a good time. I mean, in nighttime, some people don't want to go out and all of that, I think.
Plus we're tired and cranky.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
are we
I
looking
think
at
it's hard.
February, John? Like next month, or do you want to, how soon do you want to schedule this?
They are.
How soon would you like to schedule it?
Yes, good question. I would like to do it as soon as possible. I'm thinking no later than February. I know I'm going away on, in 2 weeks. It's unlikely we'll get it scheduled before then. So I'm thinking it's probably mid-February.
Anyone else going away in February?
And you'll be gone how long, Yogi?
3 weeks
Till,
till February 15th.
so after
Last week
February?
of January and first.
So toward the end of February.
Yeah, so will everybody be here the last 2 weeks of February? So how about,
I'm not sure about the last week, but the third week, yeah.
we'll start the third week of February. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. One more thing I'd like to bring up. You may recall that in September, we created and submitted to, for consideration by the Planning Commission, a potential revision to the ordinance, zoning ordinance regarding parking under habitable structures. You may recall that was something that we had agreed upon. After due deliberation and further consideration, hearing comments from the Planning Commission, I would like to suggest that we consider indefinitely tabling that, because I believe we've got some other priorities that we need to pursue, namely, getting our bylaws revised. Number two, really getting finally resolved the historic district map. Get that done. And in some ways, I believe that if we can focus on that effort, rather than get distracted by this parking effort, we might be more successful more expeditiously. So, any discussion or comments about that, folks? Can we agree that we would table that indefinitely for now?
Well, John, you know that this effort went on for months after month and for postponement after postponement from the last administration of this. It's an important subject.
It is.
And it's apparently it is a touchy subject as well as being important. I think we all saw the merits of what Cape May would look like in the future if we maintained this regulation and what we would do in the historic district. And there seems to be an awful lot of concern about applying it in the rest of town. And so it's perhaps better to get ourselves in order, although, I personally still believe what we did has a lot of merit. I believe what we sent off to the planning board was pretty thorough and would have had a telling effect. But to increase our chances of getting this done, because it ultimately has to go from the planning board to the city council for amendment, I'd like to do anything necessary to increase those chances. And if we feel that it takes a little more time and we get some other business done, and maybe we'll get some new arguments and maybe we'll think more, that's fine with me to put it off to a future time. I'd like to not get rid of it.
Tabled indefinitely.
Yeah, that's what I'd like.
I'd like to say that I think parking and the intrusion of the car in our streetscape is a major issue. However, what happened with that amendment was that it was put on an agenda. The people on the board didn't know where it came. I watched.
Now you're talking about planning board reaction.
Yeah, and it was kind of a nightmare. And the letter that Chris wrote that sort of spelled out why it's important to the HPC, that was clear as a bell.
Yeah, I mean, we had
But they didn't even read
a
that.
fairly thorough
Well, but
memorandum.
that's the problem with communicating with people with written amendments and requests, is that people don't read. They're coming to meetings at night just like we are, and they're like, get to the point, persuade me. And I think the alignment meeting that John's proposing is where we can talk about things like this.
Thank you, Janice. That's actually one of the primary reasons for delaying this. Let's get all aligned. on
Yeah,
what we're trying
we
to do.
need to be clear and persuasive if we're going to ask for changes that are going to be really inconvenient for a lot of people.
Well, and there's another factor, though, and I agree. But one of the other factors is that when we propose an amendment based on our role and our regulatory role as the HPC, and it goes to the planning board for a review and a referral to city council, I believe the planning board has a limited role in what it's supposed to do. Now, you may make a decision on that planning board to be whatever it is you want to be, but that role also wasn't all that clearly defined.
Well, it's interesting because the city engineer did look at it and provide a response regarding the degree to which it was aligning with or compliant with the master plan. And it was a little bit ambiguous. I think the terminology that was used, and I can't quote this exactly, but it was kind of the British double negative. Well, it's not uncompliant.
Right, right.
Which leaves it kind of vague, right? So I think we need to do some more homework, really. And I'm making an assumption here, folks, that to me, one of the most important things we need to get done is to get the historic district map finally resolved and approved. And if we can focus our efforts on that initially, then we can start looking at these other things.
Again, this is not something, this is a long-term view of what parking means and how it's done in structures. It's not something that's going to happen in 3 months, 6 months, even a year.
You're right.
And there will be an effort in front of the city council. We have to decide where this is going beside just the planning board.
For my own commentary, I think that at least in what I'll call the historic district proper, it made total sense not to allow parking under the structure. I just think that made sense. You know, you don't want to have people raising the structure in order to fit cars underneath it. I think that would have really been ruinous for our purposes of trying to preserve the historic district. But I have to be honest, you know, I also know that parking is a premium in this, and it's a hugely charged issue for council and for everyone else. And so to carry that outside the historic district and into kind of the newer construction, you know, on that side of town, I don't, you know, what we're seeing now as a group is requests to tear down some of these old cottages and things like that and put up a new structure. And you almost can't put up a new one unless you put a garage in there that faces the street with something over the top of it. And that becomes very hard. Otherwise, you're just pushing all those cars out onto the street. So trying to weigh the benefits of, you know, are we really regulating new construction around parking, or are we, you know, is that really our purpose? I think, you know, adds confusion to that, and I think it's worthy of.
You know, and it's a good point,
further
Kevin.
discussion.
Because what's already in our standards, I think already addresses this
I know.
for the historic district.
Yeah, I do, I agree. And I think.
I don't think the debate's really ever been within the historic district.
it has.
It's been, how far do you extend that concept outside the district? And are you harming the district by having those areas closest to the district radically change?
Exactly.
Anyway, for food for thought and for more discussion.
John, I'd like to think about that meeting that you're contemplating in a couple weeks as an opportunity for us to define, you know, some success metrics or some things that are super important to this group.
What were those two words again?
Success metrics.
Success metrics, because I'm hearing, I think about it as highest and best use, and right now that this particular project probably falls down a little bit on our highest and best use. We only have so much time to commit to
Parking outside the district.
parking outside the district, and taking time to really like define within what we can control what's important to us within the historic district, and the historic district map is probably higher on
Can I turn
the.
you back to that historic district map?
Can you hold that for just one second?
Sure.
So I want to respond to Steve.
Yeah.
It led me to my last question for this evening, and that is, so in order for us to have this workshop, I think, be successful, I look at it as a task. And the task has, in my mind, components to it. What's the purpose? What are the products or outcomes we're seeking? What's the process we're going to use, or the activities and exercises we're going to engage at this workshop? And how do we prepare for it? Right? So I think of them as the 4 Ps. It's a task cycle framework. So in order to do that, I would like to solicit the help of 2 other people on this board, given that legally, only 3 of us can convene.
That's correct.
And discuss business, right?
Outside of this room, yeah.
Outside of this room, to, I would say, co-create this workshop with me so that there are 3 of us coming into this who are already owning it, co-creators of it, and already have a sort of a head start on the frameworks we'll be using to engage and open up and align. So is there anybody who would be interested in doing that with me? If not, I'll
No,
call.
I'd like to, John.
Yeah.
Jake, yeah? Janice?
I'm going to be away for a little bit, but I would like to help.
It'll
So-
take 3 hour-and-a-half phone calls to prepare for this. That's what I would like to suggest. So Jake and, yes? Great. Everybody good with that?
John, can I ask one more question?
Yes, Judy.
Will you be developing like an agenda to distribute prior to the meeting?
Yes.
Okay, so you will, I'll write that in the minutes that,
Yes. Because I think we have to, what is it, 10-day notice?
48
yeah, it has to be advertised.
48 hours
Oh,
for,
48
for,
hours.
for a special meeting, and Judy can coordinate the notice. You need an agenda in advance of that meeting, but if you want the small committee, less than a quorum, that can be more ad hoc, free-flowing.
Good. Okay, great. Yes, we will definitely have a very clear agenda prepared for that meeting. Okay. Now, back to where we were.
Just trying to refresh my recollection as to where we are in terms of the finalization of that district map and where the differences are.
Okay, so I need to do a little more research on this, but where it landed was at some point, Warren was going to make a presentation to city council to clarify some discrepancies between what were 4 different maps that were on the table. And I need to go back and research that. I don't know, Chris, do you have any memory of this?
I do.
Oh, Judy, please.
The administration requested that it be deferred until this year, after the election. So it was,
Well, one of the other things is, just so we have the lay of the land procedurally for that type of change, that has to go to the planning board and then to council. And that's part of the city code, is that process is laid out. If we're going to amend the district, actually, this board will vote on it, and then actually the planning board will conduct a hearing. And that's what happened last time, is that got sent up. I think there was maybe some difference of agreement about what map was being approved or this or that. But regardless of that issue, the planning board came back with a recommendation, my recollection is they came back with a recommendation that the people that would be included in the new district, albeit maybe non-contributing, would receive notice.
Right.
Now, under the city code, that's not required either. But what my personal thought on that is, okay, legally not required, but you may view that as an opportunity for persuasion, because that information is going to find its way into the public sphere, and the HPC could take some ownership over that message early on, rather than somebody reading in the paper, and what does this mean for me?
And Chris, I remember that we went through a number of potential alternatives, one of which included suggestions, for example, of grandfathering people who were going to be brought into the district as a result of the changes. And we moved beyond that to talk about what about the fairness of notice in any process that would finalize the determination of the district. And that's where my mind kind of departs where we left it. And I thought that we'd come to the conclusion that we were going to have a meeting to adopt it, but we didn't wind up giving the notice.
So what if we were to have, I would be more than happy to have a discussion with planning and Paul and the city to talk about maybe having a public meeting to present what it is we're proposing, so that all the folks who would be affected are invited to come and attend that meeting.
And ask questions.
I think that, and having the HPC be on the front lines of that discussion, because what does it mean to be in the district? What does it mean to be a non-contributing versus a contributing? The people on this board are the best qualified to answer those questions in a clear manner and avoid confusion and avoid misinterpreting that. And it's bound to be confronted with some people that are like, I don't want to be a part of it. But I think the public presentation part of that, even if it's not a legal requirement, is going to give it its best chance for success ultimately as it has to navigate through those various boards.
Yeah.
Yes, I have a question. Have we, or everyone, I'll ask, have we ever had anything such as an inter-commission council? In other words, something like John from here, Bill from planning, whoever from zoning, who meet, when we were all in college, they had the interfraternity council, and they represented all of the fraternities and sororities, that could be an entity and maybe meet every month or two and try to hammer out and explain some of the differences. Would something like that ever work?
I think that has a lot of potential. I mean, the chairs of the boards, the respective boards meeting about, the way those boards may interact.
It would open the channels of communication, things.
Over cigars.
Say, it doesn't have to be, it could be somebody from each commission or, board that would be together to just work these things out, just for more open, communication. I don't know.
Sure.
So you're thinking that would be
Have we ever tried it?
composed of city planning, zoning, HPC, and city council, so representatives from each of those 4 entities?
Right.
That'd be great.
Don't you think?
I love it. Yeah.
I do. I mean, and then that way, you would have that, and you could work out a lot of the things that way, and everybody would understand and have an idea of what everyone really represents. I'm not sure that that's clear even now.
Well, the problem with something like this, amending the map, is it's a little alien to everybody trying to do it, even this board. It's like, when's the last time was it done?
Yeah.
Okay, how do we do it? And then, it has to go through the planning board, and then the planning board members are thinking, what are we doing with this?
Right.
And that's nothing against them, it's just not something that's popping up every month. They're reviewing, site plan applications and things like that. So when something like this comes up, it's like, okay, we'll give you our full 2 cents on that. And it's like, there-
So would you folks be okay if I made some phone calls and started talking to each of those 3 entities
I
about
think it'd be
maybe,
wonderful.
maybe it's a once a month legal.
Or it could be just something or we're addressing specific problems that come up. Because it isn't that we're going to regularly review and the planning board is going to be regularly interested in everything we do and vice versa.
Oh, I think it has way more potential than it just being a one-off.
I'd like to point out
I
that
didn't say one-off, I said ad hoc.
there is a section in the comprehensive plan about historic preservation. So part of the planning board's responsibilities are the comprehensive plan. And there is definitely a component in the comprehensive plan for historic preservation, so that is part of their task.
So didn't Paul convene something like this about a month ago? It was the quality of life, and I believe that there were representatives of all 4 of those entities at that meeting, correct? So what would you suggest? Would this be a discussion that I could talk to the city manager about?
absolutely. We can speak to Paul and Justin and see if we can set something up. There doesn't need to be any official act other than, we're interested in meeting.
Thank you. All right.
Going
So do
back-
we need any,
Going back a little bit, too, my recollection was there was a technical issue as it pertained to the historic district, and that was, Warren, I remember, wanted to scale back the district a little bit. And the idea was there were several properties that are historic that would fall out of it, and those could be deemed historic on their own while not being technically part of the district.
Right.
And the concern was spot zoning, I think, and some stuff like that. That's how I recall that conversation going.
That wouldn't necessarily be spot zoning. We can have historic sites
Yeah.
that may be siloed off from the district.
And that's how it happens outside the district.
Yeah, and that
It's
was
a historic site.
That was a way of eliminating as many.
But I hate to keep,
properties as possible from the historic.
I really thought that we had agreed on the actual
I thought we-
location. So we had maps that were in agreement as to what we were going to do, but we were not in agreement as to the adoption procedure, including the hearings, including the process by which it would be finalized. The properties were not in dispute.
Right.
No, the map is complete, has been approved. Jim is correct, it was just the process.
Yeah.
I think one of the biggest things was that they were going to properties beyond the seawall that weren't included in it. They wanted to include all those buildings along the promenade in the historic district.
Yeah, there were two components. There were, I forget the number, it was maybe 122, something like that. I call them the missing teeth properties, right?
Along the edge.
And the promenade.
Yeah.
And Judy, you're saying that's already been approved?
I thought we voted on it.
Yeah, I think,
We did. There was the yellow map.
And
I think it would be probably beneficial for John and I to get together, put together a small packet of what's been done, because we've documented a lot of it. You guys approved the map. Paul developed an electronic version of the map. We have a list of all the properties that will be added. The property reports are complete, so it's just the process that needs to be completed with the Planning Commission and the administration and council. And deciding about the letter, composing the letter. So those are things that were scheduled for this year, so this is timely.
So if there is a process that includes notices, invitations to properties that are affected, are there two hearings and meetings? Is there one planning board hearing along with us? Can it be combined? Because we were talking about having our own meeting with input and from the public, and we were talking about the fact the planning board has to conduct a hearing.
No, I don't think that's what we were talking about.
Well, I think the solicitor was. The planning board's got to have a hearing.
Well, yes, but I think that there was more, it wasn't that linear. I think what's being explored here, what are our options for moving forward with this? And several ideas have emerged. Seems to me that the one we're kind of aligning around is to explore with these four entities a way to create some sort of, we'll call it interagency council. And one of the ways to initiate that and convene it is that the subject matter primarily, initially at least, would be aligning around the historic district map.
If that's the way you want to go into it, we know that's where we want to go.
I think that's where we want to go
Okay.
before we have a public hearing, because we want all these folks to align as much as possible, right?
I think that's a good idea. What I would, just to clarify what I was saying about the notices, I don't think, the notice part of it's not a requirement under the code for the planning board hearing. It was a recommendation from them, and I think as a practical matter, as this would move up the procedural ladder, the people being asked to make a decision on it would want to know and be asked who was given notice and how. And I think we have the ability to take that on initially. We can have this, sort of ad hoc review of it among professionals and the board professionals, board members, if you want to have like a cross-functional meeting. But the notice part that the planning board pointed to, and I think that they would agree, but I'm not going to speak for them. I think we would want that to be at this table. We want this group of people to be responding to inquiries from the public about that, not them show up to a planning board hearing and ask them questions about the HPC. I think we would want to be here explaining what it means to be in the district and what it doesn't mean, because everyone here will be best qualified to answer those types of questions.
That would minimize the problems at a subsequent planning board.
Right. And
Airing
by
of
the
the
time it gets there, the planning board, well, the last time it went, we recommended that you give public notice. Did you get, yeah, we had a hearing on this.
Well, literally what was being requested, as I recall, was a letter being written to each of the individual property owners. That's what you're referring to as notice, correct?
Right.
Right. So this is predate, this would happen before all of that as part of a whole kind of community alignment effort, that the letter is the last piece of it.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
But it's at the beginning of the process.
I don't care whether it's the beginning or the end, as long as it gets done.
I think
But-
part of it
but-
too was that
And it also-
wasn't it that the map went to the planning committee without Warren realizing it was going there? It just jumped the gun.
There was nothing right about it.
Yeah.
Absolutely
It was
nothing
just-
right about
It was
it.
just not handled properly, and so it turned out to be a bigger political issue than it needed to be.
All the more reason to engage what Beat proposed, which is this interagency alignment.
I
because
agree.
Then we can all say, hey, what's the best way to do this?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you're working all in the same direction instead of at odds with each other, which is our problem.
Bingo.
Or you're exposing the conflict before it happens, before the bomb goes off.
Exactly.
Hey, John,
Listen,
one
if
other
we-
minor consideration, and that's funding. I know Warren asked me to join him a meeting several months ago at Convention Hall with the Taxpayers Association.
Okay.
And they were asking questions regarding the realignment of the boundaries concerning the additional historic surveys that need to be conducted and the cost thereof. Okay, but that was their consideration. And so it may be something that may come up.
So that's another issue that Judy and I have just started to talk about is working on the budget for next year and the degree to which we do need to engage any more surveys, which we'll talk about.
I have the list,
I have an Excel spreadsheet of pretty extensive list of surveys that need to be completed. And in fact, I added up a lot of them today because there's South Beach Avenue that we don't have anything for at all. So we were working with Bruce today because someone came in and we have no property report. We don't have anything for it, and there's many of them. So I have a list of well over 100 properties that need to be resurveyed. Many of them are 1993 survey, which is really old and outdated. There's demolitions, such as the one you reviewed tonight, that will need a new survey. So I keep adding to this list, and I think the way the property reports have been done in the past is the State Historic Preservation Office will fund a grant. The city will hire a consultant, architectural consultant, who has to be qualified by the state. They go out, they do what's called a windshield survey, a driving survey. They take a picture of the front of the property. Often they walk around if there's a garage in the back. They then do this description that the HPC uses in your reviews and produce the property reports. We then get a PDF of that when it's completed, and it goes into our files. So we have a pretty extensive, it's a very large historic district in Cape May City, as everyone knows. So we have a pretty large collection of them. I use them every day. They're very important to what we do. So we haven't done them for a while. We're due to do this one. Warren has brought up many times that Village Green also needs to be done, and the National Trust asked for that to be done. I don't know how immediate that is for our needs, but I would like to budget.
It was immediate enough last fall, summer and fall, for Warren to have had discussions with the city manager about the Village Green situation, and for there to have been some consideration and drafts of being able to do those surveys kind of en masse.
Block by block.
Block by block. It's what happens at this hour. Block by block, rather than dwelling by dwelling. And I have no idea where that went, other than I remember there being discussion about getting that into the budget for the current fiscal year.
Yeah, and we're going to have to research where that money's going to come from, right? Because the state's.
This year's budget has already been
Did you see language
decided.
on that?
I recall everything that you just said, except I don't know the outcome either.
Yeah. Okay.
I know that they were discussing it.
That might mean it wasn't.
I think I can fish up the language. I just don't know where it went.
The budget hasn't been approved yet, obviously, so there's still time to kind of deal with that.
Okay, so to wrap this up,
They're still going to work on the budget for 2025, so.
Okay.
so
That's
we
good
agreed
news, John.
that we were going to have this alignment workshop like the third week of February, if we can get a date and a place picked out. We agreed that we would, for now, indefinitely table the parking amendment proposal. We agreed to initiate some discussions with city manager, and Chris, maybe you could be part of this with me, about an interagency council to begin to address and resolve finally the conflicts, or the resolution of the historic district, and the process for doing that. I think that's what we just aligned around. Is that accurate, guys?
Pretty cool.
All right. Any other discussion or topics? Tom?
One other topic. I sent out a notice asking you all if January 18th for Saturday night was open for everybody, and everybody gave me a yes. If you're not able to come, please let me know. We have invited the spouses. The mayor and his wife are going to come, and I'm sure he's going to want to lead off the
Festivities.
Well, yeah, lead it off and, thank Warren so much. And I'm sure there'd be plenty of time if anybody else wants to say something about, Warren. I didn't want it to turn into any kind of roasting thing or anything. But, if you have any funny memories that you'd like to just bring out. So please come right about 5 o'clock. It won't be a 4-hour meeting. We'll keep it a little shorter than that. And I hope you all can come.
And we
Tom,
still
do
have
you want
wine
to
left over
bring?
from the last party, which I can bring.
Okay.
It's in your storage.
It's in my
Yeah, you
storage,
got it.
yeah. Yes.
One rule, no red wine.
No red,
Red wine and white furniture.
no red wine.
go along.
No, the red wine has to stay outside. Yeah.
We don't even have a front yard.
Do you want us to bring things?
Yeah.
Sue says she just wants to go ahead and do it all herself, and,
We've asked, and there's been no positive response
Yeah,
about bringing
yeah, yeah.
anything,
So
so I
we,
know what she's doing.
if you are able to leave big, heavy coats in your car, that would help a lot, because our hall closet is like that.
If it is snowing, you
If it is,
need to do the
yeah.
shoveling.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
All right,
So-
so, motion to adjourn?
So moved.
This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
2 hours.
Got to easy though, yo. 8 o'clock, man.
This is what we call a medium meeting.
Yeah, our beach commission meeting, hour and a half, and we're walking.
You haven't seen the 3 to 4 hour one.
Oh, I've been there for 4 hours.
Let's give Judy the floor.
So, I don't know, I guess everyone on this committee knows I studied preservation pretty seriously, like in school, took courses, have a certificate. The very first thing that you need to pay attention to are the Secretary of Interior standards. So you had an applicant here tonight who wants to remove a transom from a building. That's a historic accretion over time. The only reason he wants to take it out is it's convenient for him, which we don't consider that. So if you, and we learned a lot about this. So number 4 of the Secretary of Interior standards say, changes to a property that have acquired historic significance in their own right will be retained and preserved. So my feeling about that transom, and I think at least Janice agrees, and maybe Jan is, that has its own historic significance now. It was added a long time ago, not yesterday. Those doors and transoms were added later. They were later additions. Everyone recognizes that transom on that building. It's the only unique feature left. I don't care if a handyman put it in 1930. It's an old building. That's an old, piece of history of Cape May. It probably came from somewhere else in town. It's beautiful. It's the front door. And I highly suggest that you tell them he has to retain it and figure out how to put a door in.
So do you want to make public comment now?
Yeah, would you retain it, make all the other ones look like
No.
the original?
No, because you don't add something.
Yeah, I understand.
The standards also say you don't add things. However, if someone added something within 50 years of that building being built, and people recognize it as a feature of that building, you don't allow someone then to take it out. It's an accretion over time that's become
So,
historic. and significant.
Judy, I have a question about that. Let's say it was added outside the period of significance. Let's say it was added in 1950.
That's up to you. But
I suspect that's going to be the case.
But the secretary tells you that accretions over time that now have significance.
Yeah, I'm really,
Buildings, there's a building that
You remember those days, big,
This is the best place to put it. And the trade is environmental